You guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
I can't see anything. It's a big blur on my screen. For some reason, it's buffering and it's got all kinds of colors. Don't know what's
I
going
can hear you, Jose.
on. I can hear you guys, but I just can't see any of you guys. So something's wrong.
Jose, you may try turning off your camera and see if that helps.
You know what? Let's see. Okay, there we go. How's that?
Perfect. Can you see us?
I can see you guys now.
Okay.
I don't know what happened to my computer, but I was having technical problems early this morning. And let's see, what do we got here? Do we have a quorum, guys? Because I can't.
Yes, we do have quorum.
Okay, let me just get in here real quick. And, blank. All right. Well, then we do have a quorum. Let's I'd like to call to order the TPC meeting. We'll start with introductions. My name is Jose Rodriguez. I am filling in for Sam Grillo today, and we'll go around. I guess who's next on the list? Jeanette.
I am Jeanette DeBryan, Transportation Planning Director here at PAG. And I'll just go pick someone off the list. We'll go with Doug.
Good morning, I'm Doug Mozeke with ADOT South Central District, filling in for Rod Lane and Mark Hoffman this morning.
Thank you, Doug. It looks like we have Thomas Garcia.
Yes, this is Thomas Garcia with the town of Sarita.
Thank you, Thomas. Barbara Johnson. I can't hear your audio. We'll go to, let's see, David Mitchell.
Yes, good morning, David Mitchell from PAG.
All right, David Zinda.
Okay.
Good morning, David Zinda, Economic and Financial Planning Manager at PAG.
Hey, Don Garcia.
Good morning, admin support for PAG.
All right, Hannah Oden.
Good morning, Hannah Oden, Planning Coordinator with PAG.
All right, James Tao.
Good morning, James Tao, RTA Budget Coordinator.
All right, Jamie Brown.
Good morning, everybody. Jamie Brown, Planning, Programming, and Policy for PAG.
Thanks, Jamie. Jason Bahi.
Jason Bahi, Program Manager for Poskalaki Drive. And I just want to say thank you to ADOT for paving the bridge decks. My truck no longer bounces into adjacent lanes. Thank you again very much.
All right, fantastic. Josue.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Josue City of Tucson. Thanks for having us.
Hey, thanks, Josue. Thanks for joining us. Catherine.
Hi, Catherine Skinner, Pima County Transportation.
Thank you, Catherine. Patricia.
Good morning, Patricia Pablo with the Donna Autumn Nation.
Morning, Paul.
Hi, everybody. Paul Casertano with Pima County DOT.
Thanks, Paul. Rick.
Morning, everybody. Rick Ellis, PAG RTA.
And then Rod, are you with us or?
Yes, I got it all figured out. My computer just like stopped mid-sentence. It was the weirdest thing. So, yeah, Rod Lane with ADOT. Thank you. The bridge decks are not quite done. They'll be completely done tonight. It's our last night. FYI.
Fantastic. And Romero.
Romeo Truly, Senior Transportation Planner with Federal Highway Administration.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Romero. And did I miss anybody? Sonia, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Good morning. This is Nalo. I'm with the Town of Sarita Public Works.
Hey, Gala, thanks for joining us.
Yep.
And Robin, it looks like I might have passed you too.
Right, Robin Rain, City of Tucson, Department of Transportation Mobility, here for Sam today.
All right. And Barbara, are you able to hear us?
And Dan Grossman, Town of Marana.
Hi, Dan. And Hunsu, it looks like Hunsu joined us as well.
Yeah. Hansuno, PAC, modeling administrator.
All right. Any others? All right.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Let's move on to item number 2, in-kind reporting. Mr. Brand,
Thank you. Regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you are paid with federal dollars, please let us know. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of the meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. The time spent working on PAG RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. Thank you.
Anybody? Okay. Get the list. All right, moving on to item number 3, approval of the September 20th, 2023 meeting summary. Can we get a motion? Did everybody get a chance to take a look at the minutes? Anybody?
I move to accept the meeting minutes. This is Thomas with the Town of Sarita.
Great, thanks, Tom. We got a motion. Can I get a second?
Second, Catherine with Pima County.
Thank you. Thank you. We got a motion and a second. Any other questions? Hearing none. Can I get a motion? Signify by saying aye. All those.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, regional transportation revenues update. Ms. Tao.
Good morning. Again, my name is James Tao. I'll be providing today's revenues update. You may have noticed that we have updated the regional revenues report this month. We believe that this cleans up and clarifies several items that were on the former report, as well as incorporating some additional items. The biggest change is that we moved the information in the item memo into the actual report. At one point, this attached report was limited to HERF. By request, we began incorporating other funding source information into the item memo since the report was limited to HERF. Now we've expanded the attached report across several other funding sources so that it's no longer just a HERF report. This new report looks specifically at roadway funding. Usually this involves what PAG directly administers, STBG, HERF 12.6, HERF 2.6, and RTA. However, we do also show HERF revenues of our member jurisdictions who receive HERF. We feel that this is also important information to consider from a regional standpoint and helps to provide a complete funding picture. It also helps account for figures that were in the older report and continue to be included in this report. For example, Table 3 shows total HERF received across the region, including HERF 12.6, 2.6, and direct HERF, and even VLT, that's collected by PAG member jurisdictions. In previous reports, we only showed the 12.6 and 2.6 in detail. So now we'll be able to see those the other half of the story as well. So now I'll walk through the tables. Table 1 used to be in the item memo. This shows a summary of everything PAG has received in our accounts year to date. So we see HERF 12.6, 2.6, RTA revenue, and STBG greater than 200,000. In the past, we would show federal obligation authority, and now we show STBG greater than 200,000. Because we're really interested in roadway funding for this report, we're focusing on the in-kind of funding, STBG greater than 200,000 that can be used to that end. If you recall, all remaining RTA roadway projects are in the greater than 200,000 urban area. So in table 2, it shows what was adopted in the last tip. We also moved this table from the item memo, and that's why you see it here. You'll notice that in this case, we show projected federal obligation authority, which tried to capture STBG available. However, it did not distinguish between population bands, and we will do so in the future as we did in table 1. So now to table 3 and figure 1. Turning to table 3 and figure 1, we see something that we're already familiar with. As of August 2023, there was just shy of 30 million in HERF and VLT collected across the region. Of that 30 million, PAG collected about 6.3 million, or about 20% of that regional funding. The remainder was distributed directly to Pima County, cities of Tucson and South Tucson, and the towns of Marana, Oro Valley, and Sahuarita. Inflation was 3% year over year, and regional HERF revenues were almost 6% year over year. Over the 5-year average, we stand at about 9.26%. And table 4 is also familiar and shows HERF 12.6 in detail. So far, we have $5,182,931 in the books, which is about 9.28% more than the official ADOT forecast and about 7% stronger than last year. One change is that the FY 2024 projected column is no longer a flatline estimate where the official annual estimate is divided across months. Now PAG staff uses the variation in past distribution to imply future monthly distribution. So what you see as a projected revenue in August of FY 2024, or $2,146,614, is the product of the total FY 2024 projected $28,421,000 times the ratio of August 2023 actual divided by FY 2023 total actual. If the future resembles the past, then this approach to monthly estimates should capture the seasonality in the data. For example, if we might expect higher HERF in the summer when people fill up their gas tanks and travel, and that might be the case in May of 2023, which had the highest distribution of the year. So in table 5, it's similar to table 4, but for HERF 2.6. The story is quite similar to HERF 12.6, stronger than expected collections, totaling $1,120,292 year to date. Table 6 is familiar and unchanged. Currently, PAG has $74.7 million in an interest-bearing account. A large portion of the money is already programmed on projects. Tables 7 and 8 are both new. In table 7, we look at the city and town HERF distributions year to date. In the final column, we see city-town total. We have this data going back to about 2003, so we included a wealth of ratios below the total. Depending on the jurisdiction, there is some variation in trend over time. I believe the city and town HERF distributions are related to the amount of fuel sold in those jurisdictions, though there are some other pieces. Table 8 shows the HERF 12.6 and 2.6 we've already seen. Additionally, we have Pima County HERF and Pima County vehicle license tax, the proportion set aside for transportation use only, that portion. The final column sums of this data in table 8 as well as table 7. So this is the regional total and should match table 3 above. Table 9 shows the previous 5 years and lets you see how much HERF your city or town received. Sometimes these numbers change depending on corrections that are made from ADOT, although we make every effort to update changes when we see them in the reports. There may be some very small deviations from what your finance staff may report. And table 10 shows gallons of gas sold in Pima County through various fiscal years. We normally see around 13%. And in table 11, it was also brought in from the memo and shows RTA budget and actuals. We did reformat a little bit to make the column or the table consistent with others in this report. Note that the FY24 adopted budget month by month figures are generated the same way as the HERF, weighting according to last year's actual seasonality. And currently we see about 30.2 million collected in TPT this year, trending for a nearly 5% gain over the adopted budget. That also mimics the percent rise over last year's actuals, just over 5%. So that concludes my update. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. Any questions?
Hi, Sam.
I have a question. So I'm curious, do we know when the ADOT HERF estimates will come out? Usually it's September and October. We haven't really seen anything yet, so I don't know if we have a sense on if those are going to go up or down. Have you heard anything?
I think I would defer to Jamie or David Zinda to answer that.
Yeah, thank you, James. Thank you, Ms. Skinner. Actually, we had the same question and we inquired earlier this week, and Mark Hoffman is asking ADOT FMS about the timing for the release of the official 10-year HERF forecast that ADOT publishes annually. Like you said, normally I believe we see it on the website in September. We haven't seen it yet. And then following that, we get the MAG-PAG distribution is sent separately several weeks after that. So we are awaiting that. And once we get it, we'll share the results with you.
I have one other question. I know that the revised reports were looking at STBG over 200,000. How do you anticipate reporting on the other population bands? Because I get that it's the over 200,000 that affects more of the RTA roadway projects, but I know we should also not forget about other funding coming to the region. And Pima County, unincorporated Pima County definitely has a lot of territory that is eligible for those under $200,000 STBG funds.
Yes, Ms. Skinner. I may. Oh, sorry, James.
No, if you'd like to take that, thanks.
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird historical thing of how this evolved in this report, right? So I think that in prior years with the TIP, we're trying to be consistent with certain tables in the TIP. And I think what we were normally programming, although we weren't explicitly labeling it, was STBG greater than 200,000. And so when we made this report like last year, 2 years ago, and started incorporating items in the item memo, we were taking things out of the TIP and pasting it basically right into that item memo. And then this part of that table was taken from the item memo and put here. So it was trying to mimic something that was in the TIP, but going forward in the future, I think we should explore perhaps breaking down this STBG by population band, and it's certainly something we can look at maybe incorporating into this report too. It looks like Mr. Brown had a comment.
Yeah, no, thank you, David. Just to add to that, my understanding is that we will show a breakdown, not just of the greater than 200,000 STBG, but the other population bands as part of the TIP development process, the revenue projections document. So that was something that came up at the TIP subcommittee meeting, and we intend to bring that forward at the next meeting of the TIP subcommittee. In terms of adding it to this report, that's something we can explore.
Okay, I just want to make sure we have sight of what that is, because it does take a lot of planning to have anything construction ready if we have large amounts of money to spend, or even small amounts. If we're trying to use it for construction, it takes some planning ahead of time and environmental clearance. Thank you.
Any other questions? This is an informational item, so if there are no other questions, we're moving on to item number 5, Regional Mobility Accessibility Plan, RMAC. Ms. Orin.
All right, I'll go ahead and introduce the item. This is just our standing agenda item for RMAP. Today we have 3 topics that we'd like to cover. One is just the status of the project list. And then Dave Mitchell will give a presentation and some discussion on performance measures. And then Hunsu will give us a update on the modeling team's work. So just to kick it off, I'll pass it on to Hannah and we'll talk about where we are with the project list.
All right, thanks, Jeanette. Hello again, everyone. So yeah, I'm just going to provide a quick update on where we are with the 2055 RMAP project list. So I want to thank everyone who's been into the RMAP Project Explorer and has added projects, updated projects. I know that was a lot of work, so we do appreciate that as we work towards finalizing that project list. And also thank you for the communication. I've communicated quite a bit with a number of you as we kind of work through those changes and additions in the Project Explorer. Of course, if there's any other changes that are needed at this point, any additions, deletions, just adjustments to existing projects, we are certainly available to help with that and continue to be. So yeah, pretty much we've had jurisdictions again go in, add new projects and update their existing projects. So we're pretty much done with that, just waiting on a few other changes in the Explorer. But where we're at now, just the total number of projects and the total cost. So I just did a quick calculation. So the new projects that were imported by jurisdictional partners and the in-plan projects in the Explorer. So that totals about 382 projects, and the total cost right now is approximately 28.4 billion. As a reminder, the anticipated fiscal constraint for the 2055 RMAP is 16.1 billion. So again, we know this is not, the final number, as projects, might continue to evolve a little bit in the Explorer, but right now the total project cost for in-plan and new projects exceeds the fiscal constraint by about $12 billion. So just ask that maybe, moving forward, you might give some thought to any in-plan or new projects that can be moved into the reserve project list to bring the cost down to meet the financial constraint as we work to refine the project list. Or if there's any in-plan projects that can be deleted at this point, and we have seen that or a number of jurisdictions have done that, but if there's still projects that maybe aren't relevant anymore, or that you think can be removed from the in-plan list, either deleted or moved into the reserve list, we can assist with that as well to again meet that fiscal constraint. Also in the Project Explorer, we did update the timeframes for the projects. It deferred back to the previous RMAP in the Explorer. So right now, the early timeframe for projects has been updated to 2024 to 2035. The middle timeframe is 2036 to 2045, and the late timeframe is 2046 to 2055. So this is automatically updated and reflected for all projects that are in the Explorer. So if you want to just go back, take a quick look, make sure that that's still accurate for your projects on those updated timeframes. You can go ahead and do that, and also update that as needed. And of course, we can help with that as well. So moving on. So on Monday, there was an email that was sent out by Zonia with a couple spreadsheets that were attached. So the first had a list of all the current reserve projects that come from the RMAP Project Explorer. So we kind of wanted to have some discussion, get some feedback today to see if there's anything that can be removed. Maybe there's a project that's no longer relevant. Just bring that list down, maybe clean it up a little bit as we move towards again refining the project list for the 2055 RMAP. And the second spreadsheet that was sent had the projects for the multiple sponsor, or they were multiple sponsor projects. So essentially this means projects that cross jurisdictional boundaries, or they were categories such as region-wide intersection improvements. So today we also wanted to get maybe some initial feedback and have a discussion on anything that stands out in that project list. If there's any changes on updating cost estimates, moving any of those projects into reserve, deleting projects. We've received some feedback so far, but if there's anything else that's been, or feedback that's been reflected in the Explorer, but if there's anything else that stands out or that you can think of, again, just looking to kind of clean up the list as we move forward to a final list for the 2055 RMAP. And that is everything on my list. So Jeanette, I don't know if you had anything else to add.
No, that was really thorough, Hannah. I would just, reiterate to take a look at that email that was sent on Monday and those two tables, especially looking at the reserve list and cleaning out some projects. We can tell that some of you guys did take a swing at it, and others might not have done that. So please do take a look. As Hannah mentioned, we're not anywhere near fiscal constraint. So go back and look at those timeframes and give it a second look. We would appreciate that. The multi-jurisdiction projects, some of the jurisdictions let us know that they want to pull out of some of those projects. So if you're part of any of those, take a look, let us know. If we don't hear from you, we will hunt you down. You will hear from Anna, I should say. But we will follow up with some of you specifically on individual projects. So that's it. Does anyone have any questions on the project list?
I have a question. This is Thomas with the town of Sarita. On the multiple sponsor list, is there a reason why it would just be under multiple for the sponsor rather than maybe a lead jurisdiction? Or if it's like an RTA or a regional, like a PAG sponsored projects, to kind of give a sense of where like who's leading that project and or the location? Or is there a reason for it to just be generic and multiple?
The multiple label was given on projects that were going to take a collaboration between more than one jurisdiction. So usually the way those panned out was there was one agency, one jurisdiction that kind of was the project management lead, but it showed up as multiple jurisdictions on the list. That being said, that can be changed. So I'm thinking projects in particular where we would want to keep that multi-jurisdiction sponsorship would be something like Silver Bell, where you've got different jurisdictions playing big roles in those projects. But that can be adjusted for sure.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious. Thank you.
Any other questions? Jen, I know that multi-jurisdictional projects, for example, the ones that we have in Oro Valley, that goes into Pima County. So obviously we'll be talking to Pima County on those projects, but we're still waiting for the RTA next. We don't know if they're going to make the list or not. So if they're not going to make the list, and obviously we'll make some adjustments on the RMAP. But we're still like on hold. Okay, is this project moving forward on the RTA next? We haven't got any information. So
yeah,
we're actually waiting. We're waiting for the RTA next.
That's a good point, Jose. Yeah. So there are, the RTA next project list has not been officially approved by the RTA board. So we'll definitely have to wait for that to happen, and have that reflected in the RMAP project list. So once that happens, that update will happen, and we'll have to go back and look at those projects and see, who's going to take the lead on them and how they're going to move forward. But yeah, I mean, that's something we definitely have our eye on.
Skinner, you have a question?
Thanks, Mr. Vice Chair. I know previous cycles, there's been a technical advisory committee formed that helps kind of walk through, especially these multi-jurisdictional issues, some of the fiscal constraint issues. And I'm happy to put it in the form of a motion, but I think that would be an incredibly helpful tool in trying to build this RMAP. I don't feel that TPC, with the amount of time and other things that we have on our plates in this group, it feels like a special group that would then make the recommendations up through TPC for our review might be appropriate.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So if you'd like me to make that in the form of a motion, or I don't know if PAG staff, you want to respond to that. This was a suggestion that had been made a year or so ago when we started talking about this, but I think we need to look at it more seriously now.
What do you think?
I'll second that motion. It's Thomas with the town of Sarita.
What do you?
It's a motion.
Well, let's hear from PAG first. What do you suggest?
Sure. I mean, we can do that for sure. We can bring a smaller group together, because it would be of a nature where we would have a representative from each jurisdiction that would constitute a quorum. So we would have to have it as a separate subcommittee or task force.
All right. Can we do that like in future agenda items under item 7? Bring that up.
Well, we can make the action right now, I would think, so that then this can be happening outside of these meetings, and then that committee would report up, or PAG would reply up in future meetings as a part of the RMAP update, is what I was picturing this as.
All right. So we have a motion. We have second. Any other questions? Hearing none. I guess we'll let anybody, well, this was really actually an informational item, and we're making a motion. So, all right, well, If there's no other questions, any in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And let's see, any other questions, guys?
No, Jose, we'd like to just pass it over to Dave Mitchell to discuss performance measures. There he got his presentation up.
Yes, hi. Thank you for that, Mr. Chair and Jeanette. Good morning, everybody. Today, my name is David Mitchell, Senior Transportation Planner for PAG. I'm here to discuss the performance targets that will be used in the 2055 RMAP. Let me back up. So to help facilitate this discussion, there's some slides that we have in here that show the measures with the 2045 RMAP performance targets. Those are the ones that are currently in place. The last time we saw these tables and charts were in the 2045 RMAP update. So that was about 3 years ago we had these published. They are sorted by performance goal category. The tables and charts are provided for each measure so we can evaluate them. And the purpose for this is so that we can begin the discussion and the development of the 2055 targets. Currently, there are 38 performance measures that have targets affiliated with them, RMAP specific. There are more than 30 additional measures that don't have targets, but we still track the data for. So even if it's not something that we have a specific called out and public adopted target, we still are collecting data to understand the behavior of our transportation and mobility networks. And that number continues to grow as we obtain new data, as we have to keep up with other federal requirements such as FAST Act. We continue to gain access to new data sets, and we use those to build up a librarian category for future use. At the moment, through our analysis and evaluation, staff is recommending that we extend performance measure targets to 2055 by applying the same desired change that we use in 2045 for those targets and apply those to current condition data. All this excludes air quality measures. We'll dive into that shortly, but we recommend that we update those to be more consistent with common practices, and also to eliminate specific numeric thresholds and instead have the continual preference to have annual changes. And we'll see those as we go in there, but these will help us to be updated and current with other regional air quality goals and objectives. I can pause there for a moment if there's anybody who wants to chime in for a question, but we'll go dive into each measure. There'll be a table first, and then we'll look at a chart. But I'll pause there, Mr. Chair, if you have any desire for questions.
Any questions from the committee? I hear none. Please proceed.
All right, cool. And all this is the first time you've seen this data, and these slides and charts will be available off the PAG website under meeting materials. So the first performance measure category is system maintenance. There are 3 measures in that category: pavement condition on the federal aid network, bridges rated in poor condition on public roads, and the condition of our fleet vehicles. The columns show the target. That we didn't adopt numeric targets. We adopted a principle and a practice of reducing or having a rate of change, I would say, for most of these. The current status is shown here. The one highlighted, the transit fleet condition, we've actually changed position on that since the last publication of this. So we were behind pace, but with the acquisition of some new fleet vehicles, we are now back on target, and that's pretty common with these measures over the course of time, is that some of the measures where we are maintaining a good threshold, they're going to go up and down on this one. So this one wasn't alarming. It was kind of expected to do that. Here's a look at the the charts. You can see at the top, the labeling of it. The upper left is the pavement condition. We are currently on pace to meet that target. And we want to decrease that to be well below 20%. Likewise, with the public bridges, we're performing very well. And as we saw in that table, the previous table, that the age of public buses has dropped in an acceptable threshold. So, any questions on these? So I want to back up on one slide just to remind everybody that our staff recommendation is to extend the 2045 targets to 2055. And if there were to be a numeric value assigned to that per se, the process for that is very similar to how we establish benchmarks. There's a trend line using current year data as a baseline and the target year data as the endpoint, and that trend line allows us to find any point along that line for a calendar year, and we can use that for extending past the 2055 horizon to develop the same. Once we get to the actual draft portion of the plan, we will be able to have a representation of those targets in numerical form for you to review, so we can make any final adjustments if necessary. But at the moment, staff is recommending that we just extend these three targets accordingly. And you'll see the similar pattern with the rest of the measures. I'll talk less and we'll fly through them a little bit quicker. Next category is safety. There are 13 measures in this category, so there's quite a bit to go through. I will basically jump to the last screen on there. There were 4 categories that changed status since the 2045 RMAP update. That is the total fatality rate. We are now behind pace on that one. That means more deaths are happening per vehicle 100,000 vehicle miles traveled. We are now on pace for serious injury rate. That one we're just under the threshold of that one, but we flipped course on there. Serious injury rate to cyclists, unfortunately, we are now behind pace. That's indicating that when there's an incident or a crash with the cyclist, the number of serious injury rates are increasing per number of commute trips. That does not necessarily mean that the number has increased. This could mean that the data has increased. And in fact, the census data and the estimates were affected by the COVID shutdown. This is a 5-year average. And so now, once we were doing well, now we're not performing well because the data collected and used for this measure is pointing a 30% reduction in number of commuters. So that's how this measure was affected in that rate. So there's not much to be alarmed there, but just to understand where the data is coming from. And then finally, the transit crash rate, we are now on pace for that. There have been fewer transit related crashes with Suntran buses and streetcars on the network. The graphs and data are here. I will spare the time going through them. They will be in the packet, but if anyone does want me to pause into one, I will be happy to come back through them individually. But the summary of it is that some of the measures in this area are trending in the wrong direction. So safety is a concern, and in terms of RMAP goals and strategies and targets, we are behind pace in many of them. So that is the takeaway from this one. However, we are looking to, as PAG staff, we want to recommend that we extend the current targets to those every measure. System performance, these are your congestion and vehicle travel, like mileage on the network. Again, we want to extend all these. We are have the same status as we did in the RMAP update. I will pause on these graphs. All of them are on one sheet, but you can see that we are behind pace and trending away on the top 2. We're basically driving more per person and driving longer distances. Is what those graphs are saying. And then the bottom ones are saying that we are still experiencing better than expected or desired performance in terms of congestion. So our congestion remains to be at rush hour, at intersections, and is not a major plaguing issue on our networks. think we have a slide. Oh, wait, went through one too fast. So multimodal choices is the next goal area. There's no status change on these measures. Again, we want to extend, staff recommends the extension of these targets to 2055. I will pause briefly on the next ones, but we are basically not fully seeing the transition from automobile usage to active modes that the original RMAP had set forth. And in fact, we are only on track to meet 3 of the 7 targets in this performance area. Moving on to the final one, and this is the one where we have a deviation in our recommendation. We want to adopt, recommend a different target per se, and this is to stay on course with common practices. FAST Act measures use an annual change for the measure. When we drafted the original RMAP and went through the process, there was not a lot of data that helped inform this process. Everything was kind of an aspirational. And on top of that, our region performs very well in all of the air quality areas. We struggle with ozone and particulate matter specifically. And so through the collaboration with the appropriate staff and reviewing other performance, if you were air quality objectives and goals, it seems appropriate that we modify our targets to be an annual reduction over current levels as our 2055 target. And this is a look at some of the metrics. We are behind pace in greenhouse gas emissions. You see that one's a very volatile graph. That one's tied to VMT, and there's been a lot of data work with ADOT in providing that number, and it's been hasn't been locked up yet, it's for lack of better terms. But in the other categories, we are performing well and on pace to meet our targets. And it just seems natural that we can continue the same spirit and intent of the original RMAP performance targets to change them up with just an annual reduction and still be able to satisfy regional goals and objectives. I will pause there, Mr. Chair, because of the that different recommendation. I could go for discussion on that matter.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. And I see Mr. Casartano, you got a question?
Yeah, I'm happy to wait till the end, Mr. Chair, if that's all right.
Please continue, Mr. Mitchell.
Sure, I believe that's all I have for general discussion then. Oh, I'm sorry, I did have one more, land use and transportation. My apologies. This one does not have any change in status or recommendation. Looking at this intent of this goal area was to, of course, push the availability of land use patterns to mobility needs. So making it possible for people to live where they want to, work where they want to, and have access to good transportation. So we are behind pace, unfortunately, on a lot of these. They are transit and active modes sensitive, and we are still a auto-centric community. And so we see that we're not on track to meet any of those targets. So that's the last one.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Casartano.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. David, I know how much work goes into this, and it's great. I guess my big question is, how are you envisioning aligning the investment portfolio for 2055 with the targets? And some of those that come to mind are specifically, if we know that we want to hit a pavement target for regional roadway condition, what is the investment required in that? Some of them are not quite as clean and easy as that, but if we know we're performing poorly in safety, how do you, as all of the PAG staff, envision focusing the project portfolio for the overall RMAP to address the performance targets? Because it seems like we have a smattering of projects in there, and our performance tracking is kind of all over the board. Multimodal choices isn't quite where we would like it to be. And people could say, well, your investment in multimodal options could be a little bit more robust in order to get to that target. So I guess the root of my question is, do you have a process by which you envision aligning the concentration of project types to achieve the targets? And for those that are a little bit more easy, like pavement, will we be able to arrive at a number that if you want to reach this target of pavement condition, you need to invest this many $1 billion on the federal aid network or whatever the network would look like?
Sure, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Thanks, Paul, for that question. Well, the question you ask recognizes two issues, or I would say circumstances. Is one, it's not the current direction for our performance measures program to be tied to funding in terms of impact of dollars spent. That's one limitation. And another is there's a lot of different types of data sets that we would have to acquire and also figure out which would be appropriate to use for that analysis. At the moment, the industry struggles with that as a whole, to find out if we were to invest this amount of dollars, what could we see shift the needle in terms of safety, in terms of congestion. There are areas where we can have better forecasting, and you pointed out that's in areas where there's asset management involved, so bridge condition, pavement condition. If our performance measures have physical characteristics like bicycle miles, bus pullouts, transit stops, and perhaps even characteristics about those qualifiers could be in depth. The limitation we currently have is that our project portal only incorporates a few of those things. So that's the biggest challenge right there, is that we're not set up for that right now to fully examine the impact of all of these performance measures in the way that we look at our projects. It's not the way it was originally designed, and the information can be gathered and given to you on per request, but again, it's not a part of the portal. So that's where we stand with that. The additional challenge that we have, and forgive me, I just lost my train of thought with it, but I'll try and bring it back. But using the performance measures, project portal is just an informational thing. So the other challenge is that we do not have regional council direction to use the project portal as a decision-making criteria. So we can put a ranking system in it. We can use it for some level of scenario planning, but we don't use it to move projects from one stage to the next. And so that's where I'm going to leave the answers that I have. Paul, perhaps Jeanette or anyone else on staff can provide further insight, but that's from my program perspective, that's a limitation of our performance measures framework, if you will.
So quick follow-up, Mr. Vice Chair. I guess I'll just leave the regional council issue aside, but I would ask, what is the purpose of the performance measures if we're not using them to make decisions about investments? So that, I think, has always been the purpose of tracking performance, so that we know how better to invest in order to hit the targets that the region is setting and establishing as important targets. So as I look at ADOT's long-range transportation plan, they've taken a little bit of a different approach than they've taken in previous plans, but I like some of what they've done in that they've identified some performance measures, and they've also identified what ADOT envisions as the amount of need associated with the ADOT network. And so I'm a little bit apprehensive to continue to point to all the projects and unfunded things in the reserve list as a comprehensive set of needs when they're not really connected to the performance of the network. So I guess I'll put that right there, but I'm wondering if we're not able to have a sense of what kind of investment ballpark areas need to take place in order to make headway to the targets that have been set in the long range plan, then how, I guess I'm a little baffled as to how we're intending to use them. Not really a question there, but my apologies.
Just going off from memory here. I believe we used to use these performance measures when we used to rank some of these projects. It would make a list, we insert them, and then we look at all these items and go, how did you address safety? How did you address missing links? How did you address certain items? And then we would rank them accordingly, just to get an idea more or less if they are addressing some of these key items or performance measures. And I believe that used to happen at the tip, but again, we haven't had a full tip meeting for a while. Do you recall any of this, Ms. Skinner?
Mr. Chair, you're
Yes.
correct. Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting, but yeah, Mr. Chair, you're correct. We do have the ability in the Project Explorer and the performance reports output, and as part of the regular exercises to look at it through those angles. Like, again, it's just as for information, not necessarily to for decision making.
Correct. Then you're absolutely right. They were at one time, I think, being used for ranking, and then we just said, no, let's just use them as more as of a guideline.
Yeah.
Ms.
Yeah,
Skinner.
it was a wonderful tool that Josh Pope helped develop for PAG. And yeah.
Ms. Skinner, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I mean, I agree with you, Jose, in terms of how we use them historically. They are a good tool, and I would just say it's really sobering to look at how poorly we're performing against these standards that have been, I believe the performance standards and what we're aiming for is something that Regional Council has endorsed. At least they've been included in previous RMAP. So in that sense, they've seen them and approved, but we don't seem to be introducing anything into our process to try to improve these things. So, I think we already had an action earlier in here, but I would say this is something that the working group should have discussions on, because if we're just taking an existing list and kind of playing with numbers in it, we're not actually necessarily thinking of it in context to where we have the biggest challenges in our region with, safety and performance. So I don't think that we can handle these as two separate things, a project list and performance measures. They should be combined. And then the other thing I would say in there is just, how is Justice 40 going to come into play as we're developing this RMAP? Because that is, there's a bunch of federal funding that we include in our fiscal analysis of the RMAP. And so we need to make sure that we're kind of using a lens of that as well. I know that's not a performance measure, but it kind of has similar feelings in terms of how we might use a GIS tool to evaluate that.
Ms. Ring.
Boy, that took a lot to pull those mics off. This is probably opening too big of a door, and just a suggestion. All of the projects that we have listed on our RTA Next wish list that has not yet been approved, I'm wondering if we should put those through these target measures and see if they perform in any way well against them, and show those scores to our bodies that are looking into them, the TMC and the CAC. Just an idea. Does anybody else think that might be a good one?
Anybody?
I often think that using all the tools that we have are important when making planning decisions. So the qualitative and the quantitative, and I would consider these more of our quantitative measures that are good to introduce to any decision.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, Ms. Rain, that is the intention to do once the list is more solidified, is to use the performance measures to see how these projects might move the needle. They're also going to be analyzed in terms of the modeling effort and trying to show, like what are the impacts going to be from this particular project package. So once it gets to that point, we can start doing some of those analyses once we know, what those investments are going to be.
I guess I would want to at least partly use it in order to make those final decisions, for those two bodies to start making those final decisions?
I believe that information is already available to them. I don't know if they're using it or
Well,
not.
Mr. Chair, if I may, there's a thing of caution we have to understand is with these performance measures for the entire region, to use the exact same, to be able to look at it at a product specific level is not always possible. For one, not half, but a good number of our measures are outputs of our transportation demand model. So it's modeled output. Those are estimated figures. Other data points, again, if you build one road with capacity, it may alter the impact on another intersection nearby that may not have had capacity previously. So to do one project and evaluate what one product does for the entire network doesn't give you the information you're looking for. It'll be misleading. There are characteristics that you can apply. So it's looking at the RMAP strategies that are in narrative form will tell you how we can accomplish them. And the data will then be as a result of the implementation of those strategies. And we are refining those strategies. The ones that are in the original RMAP are going to continue to be examined, and you'll see those. The way that the reports that Jeanette was speaking of is going to be from a network level and see how the impact of the projects that are being presented will impact current baseline data. So Hansu's team will do the model output and show the build versus no build scenario, and there'll be a performance measures package that goes along with it. So that's how our framework is designed and set up to operate. And those are also the limitations of performance measures and project analysis that we have. We can use them for prioritization. So I apologize for using the word decision making. I should say to help in prioritizing projects, maybe selecting one over another because maybe it hits more multimodal. And that's something that you don't see in data because it's going to be hitting up over multiple points or maybe location related. For example, a rural project is not going to score very well in the multimodal sector for one that's in the heart of Tucson. So there's going to be a lot of limitations to that. So that's the caution I want to throw out there. Thank you.
Mr. Castellano.
Thank you, Jose. So I guess I'm a little curious, how are we envisioning cutting out $12 billion out of the in-plan list? And how does performance measures and targets factor into that? Is it just essentially going to be a free-for-all for each jurisdiction to figure out what pieces it should put into reserve? And then the second question is, what are the totals for the reserve projects and funding right now? Do we know what that actually looks like?
Hannah, do you have that number easily
And
accessible?
we can follow up if you
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
have
we
it,
could
that's fine.
definitely get it to you.
All right.
Yeah, I can pull it up here pretty quick. We just want to circle back in a couple minutes.
I guess the issue is, like, it's a tall order to cut out, $12 billion out of an in-plan list. And without some sort of framework to approach that, it makes me a little nervous how we're going to go about doing that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And we can definitely use the performance to help guide that decision. What we're hoping for here, the first whack at it is that you guys can take a look and kind of self-select. Maybe there are some errors. I know we've discussed some duplications with the city, and there's probably some stuff in there that is just, we know it's not going to happen right away. We can move it to reserve, or it's just erroneously in there and it needs to be removed. So there's just this first cut of cleanup, and then we can look where we're at, how that is performing, what impacts that list is going to make, and say to ourselves, how do we cut from there, and what would the impact be of moving some of those projects into reserve or off the table altogether. So we can kind of, once we get, I would say, one more whack at it, get it down a little more, we can take that and take a look at, where is that investment going and how is that going to move the needle, and then take it from there. So it is going to be, there is going to be a level of analysis that needs to happen. But I mean, given we're this far off, you know, we're hoping that just by going in first and taking the next couple weeks, you guys can look at your lists and see where, you know, maybe there's duplication, maybe there's something that's sitting there that isn't going to happen and it just didn't come off the list. So some of those adjustments and then take it from there.
Gotcha. And as a quick follow-up, have you guys as PAG staff taken a look at the multiple jurisdiction projects and updated those cost estimates? Because those were originally set, many of them many years ago, but they're set for a 25-year horizon. So are you adding the additional 5 years for each of those projects, or is that something that will be done like at the subcommittee level, or how's that going to be addressed, I guess?
Yeah, that would have to be.
Unfortunately, I think we're going to add a little bit if we really want to represent the needs, or we're just going to have to figure out what the compromise is. It's like, all right, the total maybe is $80 million for whatever multiple jurisdiction project, but we can only fit 25 million into in-plan, and we stick the rest of it out in reserve. But
Sure, yeah.
thinking ahead of myself here.
Yeah. And there, yeah, that list, that multi-jurisdiction list went out. And so, you know, we're gonna, you know, be addressing those individual projects. Some of them have, some of them, you know, I know, for instance, the county backed out of a couple, and then we reached out to the other jurisdiction to see what they want to do with that project. So there's a few of those that we're just, you know, working behind the scenes with individual project sponsors to see, you know, okay, if one jurisdiction is pulling out, is it a project that you still envision taking place? And then kind of moving them from there. But yes, I mean, we will have to continue to refine that and then also address the costs, because if, you know, if one jurisdiction pulls out, that might change the nature of the project. So yeah, that's definitely in the works.
And are most of these multi-jurisdictional projects, are they part of the RTA Next, you know?
I don't have the list in front of me to tell specifically, Hannah. I don't know if you, off the top of your head, know.
I don't, I think that what we have currently in the RMAP for the multi-jurisdictional, I don't think that was taken from RTA Next.
Okay.
It was just from the Project Explorer. And then just real quick, so the total cost of the existing reserve projects, we have about 95, is about 16.2 billion.
So that's in addition to the 28.4 billion of.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
All right. Is any other questions? This is an informational item from the group.
Jose, we just have Hun Su, who would like to also present on this item.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Hun Su. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, let me just double check in the slide. Okay, I have those. Just want to check. Not working, the control. Okay, good morning, Chair and the Vice Chair and the members of the Transportation Planning Committee. My name is Hyun Soo-no, Modeling Administrator at PAC. As a part of the RMAP update, and I appreciate to present one of the main foundations of RMAP modeling, 2022 county and sub-county population projections processed by an PAC Population Technical Subcommittee called PopTech from the fall of 2022 to the spring of 2023. So here's the overview, and for the discussion today, we will go first and talk about the background of the population projection, and then just the more specifically understanding county population projection, sub-county population projections. Then we will discuss in the RMAP timeline, especially with TPC and the PopTech. Here's the background, and according to Executive Order 2011-04, Arizona Office of Economic Opportunity, AOE generates the population projections and typically released and the county population projection by December 31st in years ending in 2, 5, and 8, and 3 times a decade. And also sub-county population projections released within 9 months after county population projections published. Especially for the sub-county population projections, the AOE allows for us and PAC and as a regional council of governments, COG, and to produce the sub-county population projections. This published in the county and sub-county population projections required to use and for any state agencies and for example like a funding expenditure and estimation. And plus just for PAC and incorporate this county and sub-county population projections, especially for this and the planning initiatives in the RMAP and TIP. All those and the data and the references available through the website and below here, AOE website. And for 2022 and the county population projections, especially through just the PopTech and the 2022 and the Q4 and reviewed our just the historical trends of births and deaths, migrations, and plus just based on the draft version from the AOE, we have just revised through just the discussion and finally just to release the 2022 county population projection in December 2022. For sub-county and the population projections, and this should be aligning with updated county population projection totals for averages the forecast year. We developed and because based on the discussion and earlier, and the PAC developed and introduced a time series method and 2019 county share method in the PopTech subcommittee in 2023 Q1 and Q2. Finally, just the PopTech subcommittee put forward an average of 2 methods, each incorporating the South Tucson constant for consideration by the management committee and the regional council. Then the proposed in the version in the first sub-county population projection, regional council approved in May 2023. So here's the county population projection, especially for historical regional trend. You can see blue line for births and orange line for deaths. And the bar chart in the gray is showing natural growth. And for births and deaths, you see that just the left axis, and for the natural growth is for bar chart, and you need to just read in the right and the axis natural growth. And here you see that the first and birth is more likely and is gradually increasing, but there are some like just the hiccups and dropped at 65 and the 68 that time period. And but other than that, just up to and 2006 and just gradually increased. But you see that since 2007, we see and the births has actually been decreasing. But other than like just during COVID period in 2022, we see a little bit just bounced back, and compared to and the births and that is and see that the 7 decade straight like gradually increasing. And actually just as we expected during the COVID, we see and quite just a big increase and or more likely just the 10,000 numbers to just 12,655, and which is a big and the change. But as you expected, we also just observed in 2022, and the year we observed in the natural growth in the negative numbers. On the other hand, the historical regional population trend and for migration and see that just during the Great Recession, 2008 and 9, and which was dropped. And but other than that, like just since 2010, we see and gradually in the increase in the migration population. And so as you expected during COVID-19, and we see 2021 and a big jump and as you see, and most of them like just the California and the population just moved to and migrated to Arizona, the state. And here is the 2022 the population projection, and you see maybe not showing this clearly, but you see blue dots, which is the 2018 population projection, county population projection, and the red line shows that and the estimated 2022 population projection, the county level. So especially, and you see that more likely just identical, and but the first dropped version from the earlier year was not like this, and much lower than expected. So we discussed internally and revised, and in terms of adjusting just numbers, the also understanding of the COVID-19 period, the population changes. So 2045 and the more likely same as the previous just RMAP or 2018 the population projection target 1.22 million, and 2055 and we will see in the 1.28 million the population in 2060, and it's more like 1.3 or 1.31 million population expected. Then just as we expected, and we discussed, and natural growth and the pandemic accelerated decrease of natural growth, and which was affected and significantly for the projection period. And the migration, on the other hand, estimated a recent high increase in migration trend also affected, and the migration projection period. So those and the patterns, and not likely just the same as the 2018, but likely just the equalize in those patterns, and natural growth down and the migration just increased. So more likely just a similar in the trend and the projections of 2018 numbers. So final version, the population forecast 1.31 million in 2060. Population increase close to in the 2018 projection for 38 years, and from 2023 through just 2060, and we will see annually in the 6.1K net population increase with 0.57% annual growth. So more likely contributed by and migration population. So here's a sub-county population projection, historical and the growth patterns. And you will see in the 2010 and the 2022, then just the growth in the 2010 through just the 2022, and the average annual growth rate, and the share of total growth in the 2010 through just the 2022. And just in case we added additional and comparison in the column here during the 1980 through just the 2022 share of total growth. So I just want to highlight in this table, and looking at just the average annual growth in the top in the town of Marana, 5%, and followed by the Sahuarita, then the Tucson, then Oro Valley, then just the Tucson and Pima County is in the 0.4 and the 0.6%. But other than just the South Tucson shows that the negative increase during the time 2010 through just 2022. But we kind of just concerning a little bit on this number because of South Tucson is relatively just a small, and the area also just during the COVID-19 and numerators and from the census 2020 has some issues in terms of data collection. So we're gonna just talk about that, but you see here is more likely 2010 through just 2022, and so top and portions in the growth portions, Tucson and Pima County and town of Marana, then just followed by Sahuarita and Oro Valley. And this is the rough kind of just understanding of just the recent jurisdictional level historical growth patterns. And for sub-county population projection and the methodology in the PAC, the proposed and the time series model, and using just 2018 and through just 2022 population inputs, and the main just the models we considered ARIMA, Holt, and the Brown models. And other than like South Tucson and other jurisdictions, we actually picked in the ground model with additional just calibration optimized and individually for each jurisdiction. But we also just proposed a 2019 growth of a county share and assumed the same population share of the county total approved in 2019 because of the time series model, also understanding of the COVID-19 period. I think just the individual, like it's a jurisdictional level and the projections shows there's the sum, like it's the big jump, and that actually just cannot, and the cover is just entirely of just the long-term period, the projection. So we actually discussed internally and also just discussed in the jurisdictional level one-on-one meeting, and also through just the PopTech, we actually just brought the 2019 growth of a county share model. All those relevant just methodology reasoning is actually listed here in the link, and you can find that. And so maybe just a portion of the sub-county population projections we discussed that through in the PopTech and through one-on-one meeting and with the jurisdictional partners. We set up and the maximum gross capacity for Oro Valley due to the limited build-out capacity left, and also assume the South Tucson population constant through the projection period for any possible census data collection issues during the COVID-19. For those numerator and cannot just reach out and complete the actual just a survey. So we concerned a little bit, and because of the big drop, so we actually set the South Tucson population and the constant through just the PopTech. Then proposed and the average method in the time series in the 2019 population share method to adjust the strong population increase in the city of Tucson and the Pima County during the pandemic. So the model is actually just the share those and forecasted and control total in the county numbers, but those in the historical patterns and the projection we got and from our just time series model. Because of the magnitude of city of Tucson, the Pima County, the small just increase actually affect a lot to other just smaller jurisdiction. So for that reason, we actually brought 2019 population share method to adjust this strong population and the changes. And here is the summary table. And you can see first the 2022 population is more likely in 1.1 million. And we will see in this for specifically and for our map, we will see 2.28 million population, our target year, forecast year. And you will see in the annual roughly just a 6,000 increase, in which is 0.57%. And compared to just 2010 through 2022, which is a little lower. And but that's actually just the patterns we see through our just model and projection. And more just the detail, you can kind of just review later. And I just move over for in the ARMET timeline update. And so hopefully, and hoping to just have an ARMET project list this 2023 Q4. And for PopTech, and we're gonna just discuss about the AOU population estimates 2023 numbers. And we'll discuss employment data update and the base and forecast year projections. And also we've been collecting in the jurisdictions land use data, known project, and other inputs for PAC's land use model. And hopefully just moving forward in the 2024 Q1 and Q2. And we'd like to just model RMF scenarios with those in the collected inputs and using just the PAC land use model, activity-based model, and the air quality model. Then hopefully just the Q2 more likely, and or just a little later according to our just the PACs and the important the planning efforts. And we hope to just review our map scenario, population and employment allocation in TH level, or just if it's doable, much just smaller and the resolution and called just the MAG micro analysis zone. And we hope to just discuss through those in the allocation, population and employment sometime in Q2 or just a little later. Yeah, I think that's all I have in the prepared and for direct question about those in the modeling, and feel free to just reach out to me and just my team, and also just the land use model, the modeling in the component, or just or it's also okay through just the Jeanette or Hannah. Okay, thank you.
So, Ms. Rain.
Hello, thank you so much, Henso. That was very, very nice. Very comprehensive, much appreciated. I just wanted to double check that these data points and this information has been provided for our PopTech members to review more thoroughly. I just wanted to double check that that has either already been done or is planning to be done.
Yes, that's true, and which is starting back from fall 2022, but this all those and updates and numbers and each year numbers reviewed by each jurisdiction, also discussed any issues and the concerns, and the revised and the final just approved through just the PopTech. So all those numbers and the shown here is discussed through just the jurisdictional partners, and all they have the information.
Good, thank you. I just want to make sure that the people who are more expert in this have had a really good chance to review both the data and the assumptions, right? Because I'm sure it was a lively discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, Mr. No? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. No.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see, anything further on this item? Mr. Rain. Was that the last presentation?
No, Mr. Chair, that's all we have on the RMAP item.
Okay, that's it for item number 6. Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, we move on to item number 6, Country Club Road Improvements, grant submittal update.
Mr. Chair, members, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, I'll start off the discussion with a brief introduction. As it states in the agenda, this item regards the proposed Country Club road improvements between the planned new I-10 Country Club traffic interchange and the Tucson International Airport. My understanding is that this agenda item was added at the request of Pima County. And to our knowledge, Pima County and the city of Tucson will be coordinating on submitting for a grant. It's important to note that the owning jurisdiction applies for grants, so PAG does not apply and would not be a grant recipient. To start off discussion, it would be helpful to hear from Pima County and or City of Tucson staff about the priority level of this project compared to other roadway projects, as well as any updates on pursuing grant opportunities. So if I may, Mr. Vice Chair, just pause there and see if any staff members from the county or the city would like to comment on this.
I'm happy to chime in. I think that it was the Technical Management Committee who requested this when it came off of the RTA Next list. This project had been submitted by TAA, and so neither, to my knowledge, neither the city nor the county submitted this project for consideration in RTA Next. It became somewhat of a discussion point at both CAC and TMC on how it made its way to the list without having gone through any of the other iterations of prioritization. And my recall is that when they decided to take it off the list in order to try to fall within the confines of RTA Next, the budgetary amount, the discussion was, as a region, since this is obviously, multi-jurisdictional and proposed by TAA, it may be appropriate to look at this for potential grant funding or other funding mechanisms than RTA Next. So the details of the project, I don't actually know because it was not a proposal by the county. I don't know if anybody from the city has more, but I believe it was the Airport Authority that submitted it.
I do not have more. I don't believe anybody else in the city is listening and has more. You're right, Catherine. It was a TAA, and we did not partner with them to get a scope. I think because the area is multi-jurisdictional with I-10 on one end and TAA on the other, and then the county and the city sort of in between, yes, indeed, it would be a multi-jurisdictional project and it is not without merit, but I don't think either the city or the county has fleshed any of that detail out.
So do we know who's pursuing the federal grant? Who's taking the lead? Is it just?
So what TMC requested is that TPC talk about grant opportunities or other federal funding, other funding opportunities for this project, since it would not be in the RTA next list.
Got it.
And, what we can offer, Mr. Vice Chair, if I may, what we can offer is if there are ideas of specific grants that member agencies want to share with PAG staff, either right now or after this meeting, maybe within the next 2 weeks by, say, Wednesday, November 1st, if you want to email those to me, we can compile all of that. And also if we have any links that we can share of grant opportunities we're aware of and send that back out to this committee, we'd be happy to do that.
Sounds like a plan.
And if I may, Mr. Vice Chair, I don't know if anyone from Tucson Airport Authority would like to speak to this. I mentioned, I think, the city and the county, and thank you, Ms. Rain, for chiming in.
This is
Scott. Yeah, did you want to speak to this at all?
Yep, this is Scott Robidoux, Tucson Airport Authority. From what I recall, this was 5-6 years ago. I think there were plans back then of doing a 4-lane road from I-10 down to, I think it was down Country Club to Corona Road. Then from there, it would be picked up by Tucson Airport Authority, or it would be continued to then potentially intersect in with the terminal. I know there have been since been other discussions on philosophy of which road to actually go for. Some have been talking about going with Alvernon, and some have been talking about Country Club. So that's kind of the limit of my knowledge on things, but that's about it. Yep.
Okay, it sounds like this is in progress, this particular project. And we need more information. So for now, I guess we can just table it and see if we get more information on this.
Yeah, if I can offer, because it was, Deputy County Administrator DeBonis, I believe, my recall, it's been months now, at TMC that made that suggestion. I would request that PAG staff maybe go back and review the meeting notes from when this was started, because I've just been requesting this as an item as a continuation of what our committee above us told us to do as an action item. But my takeaway was not necessarily that the county was to lead this effort, but how do we as a region work together to make the most of the grant funding that's available? And maybe that's the discussion that we should start having in a broader way at this group. Is there's a tremendous amount of federal money, obviously through IIJA, and yes, it's of course upon each individual jurisdiction to apply for that funding for appropriate projects, but letters of support, regionality, all of these things come into play for a successful project. So I think that this committee has a big role in the success of bringing federal funding to this region, and Country Club may just be one opportunity for a project that's already been identified.
All right. So I guess for now, let's just table this until we get more information on this project. Who's taking the lead? Who's going to be making the application? And then once we get that information, then we can bring it back. Is that fair?
Well, I would double down a little bit on what Catherine said, that it's not just a question of who will take the lead on it, but what types of grants are available. If we had some sort of multi-jurisdictional partnership between a county, a city, an airport authority, a state for such a thoroughfare, and if there are any of our federal grants that might hit that mark, I would ask that maybe PAG staff could research that, and then that could be a way to determine who would best lead it.
Is eligible, okay.
And if I may, Mr. Vice Chair, thank you for that comment, Ms. Rain. Yeah, subject to available staff capacity, that is something that we can offer. We can, I think we do have capacity. It might take some time, but we can look to see what federal grant opportunities are available, especially under the IIJA for this project, and share that information out.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on this item? Hearing none. Let's move on to item number 7, future agenda items. Committee, any items, future?
Just, Mr. Chair, just the items, they were listed in the notes, the meeting summary from the last meeting. I believe there's a list. Those still are ongoing. I think it might be helpful to start having some target months when we could anticipate those items coming before us, because some of them have been lingering for many months. So I don't think anything new from today's meeting, besides the report outs from the newly created RMAP working group. And then those carryover items. Thank you.
It's just a quick update. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Skinner. Any other items? Okay, hearing none. Let's move on to item number 8, adjournment. Can I get a motion?
So move.
A motion, second?
Second.
All right, any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We are officially adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jose.
Hi, thank you.